Hey, I'm Blake from Econet. Today I'm going to talk about this Mocreo, I think that's how you pronounce it, environmental monitoring system. It has a cool user interface. They sent me the hub with the built-in user interface, and it included three temperature sensors, and one of the temperature sensors also had the humidity sensor. As part of my testing, I put one of the sensors in the garage fridge. What you're really supposed to do is have this mounted on the outside and the probe through the door mounted on the inside. I put one in the freezer, and this is the one that has the humidity built in as well. And I put one out in the rain. It's probably not supposed to be in the rain, in the hot tub. User interface on the hub lets you switch between sensors and zoom in and get graphical representation, which is kind of cool. And on the back of the hub, there is a port for an extra probe that you can plug in, and that could show up, you know, on the front of this as well. And all this same data is also available in the app. And in the app, you can set up alarms and schedule alarms and so on. And you can even have it email you a history that you can import into an Excel spreadsheet, which is kind of cool. The pairing process for these sensors was simple and quick, as well as the pairing process for the hub. It uses Bluetooth between the hub and the various sensor types. This is what some of the settings options look like. This is where you add the remote probe plugged into the hub. And you can move the temperature to the main display instead of time. You can change the time zone and so on. I guess you can change the brightness and so on. You can have it display calendar instead of the sensor settings. Or you can even put up the weather. Let's see if that works. That's kind of cool. So the sensor I put in the garage fridge had no problem communicating. It's maybe 15 or 20 feet away through a couple concrete walls, and it was fine. And the temperature / humidity sensor I put in the freezer was also fine. We're actually inside the freezer, which I was a bit surprised. And it was about 15 feet away through one concrete wall. But the third sensor that I originally put in the studio out there, behind the Giraffe, it's a big metal Giraffe, and through a couple of hurricane type doors, it was disconnected. It wasn't working. When I put it over into the hot tub with the probe in the water, it worked fine. I would say for most applications, the Bluetooth low energy, or the BLE, is probably good for most residential homes. Maybe for larger homes or commercial or industrial applications, you're going to have some communication issues. It's good that you can get most of the data you need and settings without having to connect to the app. You can all get that all locally. I think for alarms, you're going to have to use the app. At this point, it's kind of a closed environment, but I understand they're going to be getting some APIs done for Amazon and Google Home and so on, and that'll be cool. I also understand that they're working on a commercial or more industrial version that's going to support much longer distances between the sensor and the hub. I guess in your average home, you might use this in your freezer or your fridge, or perhaps if you have a wine cellar, but I see to adding more value in maybe commercial or industrial applications for small businesses, in agriculture, maybe greenhouses or small food process. Right, so I have 3 questions. How often do the sensor modules update the live data? And how often is that data logged or put in the history? It's hard to tell how often it updates the live data, but I'm going to ask the manufacturer that. But looking at the logs, it looks like every time the temperature or the humidity changes, that's when it updates the log. And if it doesn't change within about 9 minutes, it updates the log. So that's interesting. Also, I have a couple related questions. What happens when the hub loses power? This is looking for the hub to send some updated data. Does it stop sending that data, or does it save it until the power comes back on? And similar question, if this loses internet, what happens to the data in here? Does it save it while it's waiting for this and send that back, send that up to the cloud, which gets posted in the log? And that's important, I think, because if you're a manufacturer that's counting on this data, the reason you mostly want it, I guess, is you might lose power in your facility. And perhaps you want a history of if the fridges or freezers or whatever the other environments are, you want to know a history. A good example of that would be, not for a commercial or industrial application, but here in Florida we had a Hurricane Milton recently. We lost the power for 5 days in my neighborhood. I wasn't here, but I've heard from other neighbors that what they did for their freezer, of course, is they tried not to open it unless they really needed to keep the cold air in there. And what they did was they hooked up a generator, but they only hooked it up to the freezer for like 4 hours a day to kind of keep it going. They wanted to reserve the fuel in the generator because it was hard to get fuel. So it would be nice under those circumstances, when the power did come back up, is that this sensor sent its buffered data, 5 days worth, to the hub, and then the hub sent it to the cloud and it got logged. I'd be curious to know if it does support that kind of thing. I will ask the manufacturer all 3 of those questions and post them in the comments. All right, so the pluses. The pairing process was simple and straightforward. I love the user interface on the hub itself, and the app was very simple. A couple negatives, I guess, is they don't have hooks to some of the other popular smart home environments such as Amazon or Google Home or SmartThings. Myself, I'd like to see something in SmartThings. I could see myself connecting the temperature for the hot tub and the pool up so I can manage the pool properly. But as I said previously, they're working on those hooks, it sounds like. The distance, I don't think would be an issue in your typical home, but for industrial or more commercial applications, it would be nice to have further distances than the Bluetooth, the low energy supports. The battery life is acceptable at 2 years as per their specifications. In conclusion, I think it's a cool solution. I could see myself buying one of these and integrating it into my existing smart home to add some cool and interesting features. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and look for my next video. Cheers.